Hi, my name is Jared Graham, and we are missionaries in Hamilton, New Zealand. We've been here for 4 months now, and so I wanted to give you an update as to what God has been up to here and what we've been privileged to be a part of. I want to tell you one quick story. We're in the midst of Easter season, and as we began to prepare for Easter, we wanted to make sure that we told the story of Christ and Christ's resurrection really well. And so we began on Palm Sunday, the week before Easter, at our evening service, which is a kids club type family service, where we play some crazy games together and have some fun, and we had an Easter egg hunt. Not your typical Easter egg hunt, though. We took these eggs, which some of you may have heard of, called resurrection eggs, and we numbered the eggs, and we had different items in them, like a thorn for the crown of thorns, or a silver coin to represent Judas's betrayal, and other things like that. And finally, the final egg would be empty, to represent the empty tomb that Christ has risen. We had the kids hunt in the yard for the eggs, and as they picked those eggs up, they kept track of them, and then they came back into the sanctuary. And as we entered back into the sanctuary, we asked them to begin to open those eggs in number order. So they would open number one, and they would find a piece of paper in there that had a verse and told a bit of the story. And as they opened that, Elizabeth would tell the story and begin to ask them questions about the story. Things like, what do you think is going to happen next? Or have you heard this story before? Or what do you think this item represents? The kids would try to answer, but honestly, none of them had ever heard the story before. It was, in most cases, completely foreign to them. They were making guesses, but they really weren't even close. But what was even more surprising to us in some ways was that neither had the parents heard the story before. They knew less than the kids. They had no idea what these eggs meant, no idea about this story of Jesus Christ and his journey to the cross and ultimately his resurrection. And so we were having the opportunity to share the gospel with these people, these parents and kids, for the first time. So we took those eggs home. Every kid got to take their set of eggs home. And we brought ours home, and they found a place in our living room on a table that we have there. And one day, closer to Easter on Good Friday, I believe, some of the neighborhood kids were in our house. They like to come and run around and play with Quentin. And as they were running around, they saw these eggs laying on the table. And they began to ask questions about them. So before you know it, we have Elizabeth around the table with 4 or 5 little boys opening the eggs and telling the story of Christ. All but one of these kids had never heard that story before. And so as she told that story, we knew that the seeds of the gospel were being planted in their little hearts, and that we would have opportunities because of that conversation, not only to reach them, but ultimately to tell a story of Jesus Christ and his love for them to their families as well. Later on, the next week, on Easter Sunday, we heard from one of the moms of one of the kids that's new to our church, and she said, my daughter, every night she would open up those eggs and want to go through the story again. And so the story was entering into her heart. The gospel is very much at work here. New Zealand is very much in need of Christ. And so we would ask you, as you think of us during this Easter season, would you please pray? Pray that we would have opportunities to know how to reach people, that we would have opportunities to know how to tell this wonderful story of Christ, that God would just give us those chances, and also that we'd have wisdom in those moments as to how best to share those stories with them. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for your prayers, and He is risen.